The Wise County School Board meeting for March. Now come to order, please. Let us stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag and remain standing for a moment of silence, please. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, and please be seated. Mrs. Durham, roll call, please.
Yes. Ms. Williams?
Here.
Ms. Jett?
Here.
Mr. Short?
Here.
Mr. Graham?
Mr. Graham will not be here tonight.
Ms. Kern?
Here.
Dr. Raymond?
Here.
Mr. Bates?
Here.
Mr. Greer?
Here. Is there a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
So move.
Was that Vic? Oh, Martha. Okay. Came from that direction, that's all I could tell, right? And is there a second?
Second.
Those in favor of approving tonight's agenda, let it be known by aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. And the agenda is approved. Let's see, Dr. Mullins, school highlights, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members of the board, got a few highlights I want to share with you tonight. And first, I want to mention our recent state champion Union High School boys basketball team. They earned the title of state champions by defeating East Rockingham in the state finals held down at the home of the Bears in Big Stone Gap. I was fortunate enough to be able to see that, and they had an outstanding game. I believe this is the first boys title that maybe we've had in Wise County in over 40 years. We want to certainly have the team and the coaching staff attend our upcoming board meeting so that we can recognize them and congratulate them in person. I have talked to Dr. Goforth, and we are hopeful that perhaps in April we may see some additional restrictions lifted, and that way parents and grandparents, whoever would like to come maybe and take pictures and so forth, we can have them all up here. But we certainly congratulate them. It's exciting. It was an exciting game, and they've got most of that team back next year. So it bodes well for the future. I also want to share with you, Mr. Chair, members of the board, that we had another young man from Union High School who earned the title of state champion in wrestling. Mr. Thomas Potter was declared the state champion in the 145-pound weight class, and we also want to have Thomas up here when we bring the basketball team up. And I also want to share with you that Maddox Reynolds of Central High School earned the title of state champion in the 55-meter hurdles and the indoor track meet, I believe for the second consecutive year. It's the third year.
I think it was third.
So we want to have Maddox up and have a whole night of recognizing our athletic accomplishments. But we do congratulate all of these individuals and teams, and we're just thankful that we continue to be competitive in a lot of ways in Wise County, and we certainly thank our parents and for all of their support, and these young men who have went out and gave such a tremendous effort. And so we will hopefully have them up in April. Also want to mention to you tonight that, or invite all of you to join Wise County Public Schools this week as we celebrate National School Social Worker Week. The annual celebration sponsored by the School Social Work Association of America is a time for us to pause and honor our school social workers. They play a vital role in creating and maintaining positive, safe, and supportive school climates. They tend to our students' social emotional needs, help our parents access resources, help staff understand underlying factors affecting student performance, and so much more. In addressing barriers to learning, this team of dedicated staff members empower our students, academically and behaviorally to reach their full potential regardless of their circumstances. And so if you have an opportunity to see Miss Carrie or Jennifer this week, tell them that you appreciate them and their commitment to our children. They do a wonderful job, and we're certainly glad to have them. Also, I want to share tonight with Mr. Chair and members of the board, in an effort to encourage equity in education, the VSBA Board of Directors has designated the month of March as VSBA Equity in Education Month. Equity in education is a significant challenge nationwide. According to the National Center for Education Statistics, in 2017, the majority of public school students were students of color, and more than half of public school students qualify for subsidized meals due to low family income. Public education has struggled to serve these students both adequately and equitably. When inequity in education persists, there's a cost to all involved, including missed opportunities for economic development, greater dependence on government supports, and fewer Americans ready to serve and lead. School board members, superintendents, teachers, and families play a critical role in creating a climate and curriculum where all students receive the resources they need so they graduate prepared for success after high school. And Wise County Public Schools will continue to champion this cause as it is one of the core values that our division is built upon. So I did want to bring that to your attention. And Mr. Chair, members of the board, lastly, but certainly not least, I have a very special presentation I would like to make to one of our division MVPs. This individual has overseen one of the most ambitious challenges in our school division's storied history. Almost 1 year ago, actually 1 year ago, as we entered this very difficult period of time, we were challenged with meeting the needs of our children in a very different manner than we were accustomed to. And one of these challenges was providing nutritious food for the children of Wise County regardless of where they were being educated. Virtual instruction, some virtual, some in person, weekends, holidays, arranging pickups at the building, packing school buses full of coolers and boxes of food, working with transportation to schedule all these home deliveries, planning menus, ordering food, working and coordinating with staff, and so many other logistical items. She has truly been a Wise County MVP. And so tonight, during this week, as we celebrate National School Breakfast Week, I want to present this School Heroes Meals Hero Trophy to the individual coordinating all of these efforts, Miss Brandy Bates.
Good job, Brandy.
That's for you. Proudly display that, Miss Brandy.
If y'all get right here towards the middle for me, Miss Brandy. All right, thank you. Got these two board members, the board members, if y'all could slide out just a little. All right, there we go.
And Mr. Chair, that is all of the highlights we have this evening.
Thank you, sir, and that was a well-deserved award. Is there a motion to approve tonight's consent items?
So moved.
I give it to Philip. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mark, okay. Those in favor of approving the consent items as presented, let it be known by aye.
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 And those opposed, no. And motion carries. Are there any additions, deletions, or changes to be made to the minutes from our last meeting? This is the one on February the 9th. Very well. Is there a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
So move.
Donnies, and is there a second?
Second.
Those in favor of approving the minutes as presented, let it be known by aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. And the minutes for February the 9th are approved. Educational reports, Dr. Mullins.
Mr. Chair and members of the board, we have with us tonight Mr. Paul Clark, who will share news from the WCEA. Mr. Clark.
Good evening, Board. As I suggested last meeting, it's that time of year, and it's salary time. So I did some digging around. There was rumors Norton was going to get big, substantial raises. So I thought, I got to make sure this is proven. So I did get the facts, and I sent to all of you an email that had their salary proposals. And now the question is, everyone wants to know, how can Norton, who we thought was a school that was struggling, give such substantial raises on all levels? So that's why I sent that to you. I know there's basically about 45 in-school days left for us with children, and not counting the Friday virtuals. So our year is zooming past. It's before we can blink 2 or 3 times, the year will be over. So I did meet with the District A, all the schools in District A, and that's the buzzword right now. Everybody's working on salaries. And if I get information for that, I will share that with you all and let you know how each county is trying to budget their year and send to reward their teachers for this difficult year we've just gotten through, basically almost a year to the day almost. And that was the buzzword for our District A meeting, with all the counties were showing up, and everyone's discussing salaries and budget and teacher raises for next year. So that's all I have to share for you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. That's on all of our minds.
And that is all of our educational reports by Mr. Greer.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mullins. Okay, the floor is now open for public comments for anyone wishing to address the board. Seeing no one, public comments is closed. Let's go to item 10, discussion. Response to public comment from the last time there was none. And let's go down to 10.2, Dr. Mullins, technology.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, I will ask Dr. Kaiser to come forward and share an overview of where we are as a division in terms of our online learning platform. Dr. Kaiser.
Thank you, Dr. Mullins, and members of the board. Come back tonight just to keep you updated on things that are going on in regards to technology and connecting their students to the online learning. Been a lot of news out there lately, so I wanted to make sure that you all were as informed as anybody, as there have been a lot of media outlets and things reaching out because of our initiative with SpaceX and their Starlink internet program. But that's not the only program that we've had to connect students, to our online learning. Students that are connected have a much better opportunity to participate, and their experience is much better in online learning when they're connected. Even prior to, getting the Starlink service through SpaceX, we had worked with Verizon to get 250 mobile hotspots to distribute to our students throughout the county where cellular service was present. Of course, that is a requirement that cellular service is present. The difference between our hotspots and some of the mobile hotspots that they had was with a personal hotspot, even though you have unlimited data at home, after you use so much data, usually a 10 gig limit, then the rate or the speed of your hotspot is slowed down tremendously, rendering that hotspot pretty much useless in regards to online learning. In some instances, we had multiple students trying to share personal hotspots, which made it even more difficult. You may have saw on WJHL last night that one of our parents who was dealing with that personal mobile hotspot issue, gave his testimony, so to speak, about the Starlink service and how it changed, their situation. But the mobile hotspots that we distributed, they had no data limits, but they also had no speed rate limits, meaning that they could use that hotspot as much as they needed, without the service being throttled back. So the mobile hotspots that we distributed are much better than those personal hotspots that you hear and serve our students much better. But we have distributed 250 of those that are in use, throughout the county where cellular service is available. But, the hot topic, is Starlink, because we are the first school division in America to service students using this service of low orbit satellite internet. And I know that we have spoke about that before, so we won't go any more into the details of that. But, what I did want to share was just some pictures and things about the project, because, our computer technicians went out and did most of these installations. The kit that came with our Starlink equipment included this mount that you see in the middle picture here, just a tripod stand that would go onto a porch or surface like that. Could be put on the roof if if the family so chose. However, we did not install them on their rooftops for them because we weren't going to be liable for any roof leaks or anything of that nature. But we realized that not all circumstances were going to allow us to put it on the porch. So we actually went down to a local muffler shop and got them to take the satellite. You can see right here the difference where the satellite receiver meets the post. And we got them to expand that post so that satellite receiver would fit down in there. And so we had an option to install these out in the yard just off of the home with that 100-foot cable that would reach to the home, so that we could get it in the best location it could possibly be. What we found, and I wanted to share a couple of, is that, there's stories behind some of these pictures. This first picture on the left here was a student at Central High School who, his father had tried to get other means of internet service, from traditional satellite service as well as others. But, they had frustrations because it would take 6 to 8 hours to download one PDF document, they told me. Upon hooking them up to the Starlink service of the student, I actually helped walk him through the setup process. He set it up from his own device, and immediately he was streaming YouTube videos. That young man had, for, the first few months of school, for the days that he did participate in virtual learning, he traveled to the fire hall here in Wise, where he's a junior firefighter, to use their Wi-Fi because he couldn't participate any other way. So, I think, when we talk about the Starlink service and things, it was meant for those students who could not have this type of experience without it. And so, one of the pictures here that I wanted to show is that our families in our area have went to a lot of means and measures to try to get internet access. This picture shows this is one traditional satellite company's satellite. This is a competitor of this one that they tried next. Of course, these are their dish TVs. But then there's the Starlink that we installed, because neither of those options worked for those families, so they had discontinued that service. However, we've hooked the Starlink up there, and it is working well. I say all that to say that, we still do have hopes of extending this to more students in Wise County. Jack Kennedy, our clerk of the circuit court, is working hard now. The General Assembly did appropriate $500,000 for the Coalfield area, including Dickinson County, Buchanan County, Russell County, Lee County, Norton, as well as us, to expand this service for these students that need this. That's not the dollar amount that we would have liked to have seen, as it's going to take more to reach a better number of those homes, but I worked with the technology directors from those school divisions to get all of our addresses of those students that could potentially be served by this, and the money will be awarded through the Virginia Coalfield Economic Development Authority, the VCEDA, and so we're very excited about where this is going, because we're going to be able to serve not only more students in Wise County, but more students in Southwest Virginia who desperately need this type of service. So we're very excited about what the future holds for this, which means we're going to be able to connect even more of our students who have no other option. And I promise you, since we've been talking about this and sharing this, I've gotten many phone calls. So I've got a list of folks who are excited about this opportunity. I will say too that, as you know, we were in the beta part of the project, and one of the things that we had to tell folks up front was, during the beta they could expect to see data speeds that varied, and also they could see some disconnects and all those things that happen during beta projects. But I'm proud to report that, we've not seen very many hiccups. This service is working, and it's working well for us. The picture in the middle there is just as part of the installation. SpaceX and this Starlink program provides an app that you have to look in to the field of view to see where the obstructions to the service may be, which is very nice in setting it up. However, some of the challenges that we face in our area is where can you install this in the mountains that's not got a lot of obstructions. So, we knew when we installed them that we were going to be dealing with some obstructions, so we had some concerns on how that may fare. But, like I said, after talking with the customer, the folks that we've put this in place for, they are telling us that it stays connected. Very few times throughout the week will it disconnect. When it does disconnect, it connects back pretty much immediately. So, if you're on a Google Meet and you happen to drop your connection and have to come back, you might have lost a minute of instruction. Whereas before you had this service, you got none of the instruction until you got a recorded video. So, needless to say, we'll take that minute drop and come back when it happens, but it's not happening often. As you can see on the right there, that's just one of the screenshots that one of the techs took after they installed the service. This was not the highest rate we saw. We saw speeds of up to 147 megabits per second download speed. Just as a comparison, those that are using hotspots are getting about 8 megabits per second down. So when you have 3 or 4 students inside of your home and you're able to connect to speeds, to a connection like this, it's much more effective for everyone involved. But I just wanted to share that and update the board, simply because there is a lot of information. This is progressing very quickly, but I wanted to make sure that you guys were kept up to speed on what was going on and not reading all that or in the paper or seeing it elsewhere. So, but we are excited about expanding it because we do have more students here in Wise County who need internet access. The biggest thing is they need it now. So we don't have time to wait on service providers in the area to build out additional infrastructure. Our students, well, they needed to be connected, 6 or 8 months ago, but we'll take it as we can get it. But I'm happy to answer any questions you may have, but that's all I had for now, Dr. Mullins.
I have one. Do you foresee any significant lack of service when the foliage reappears with spring?
There was actually one home where we had designated the equipment to be installed that I had to go on site and just explain to the home, to the parent that we weren't going to be able to install there, because that's one of the things we watched for. When we were out there in January, we're looking at trees, but we're looking at a lot of limbs. And where she was at, unfortunately, she might have gotten some service out of it for the time being, but once the leaves came on, it was going to be, I hate to call it a waste of equipment and service, but it wouldn't have served her well. So we did provide her, with a mobile hotspot, which still didn't get a very good signal where she lives, but it got enough to give her some access, and she only had one child in the home. So, right now it's working well. I'm still concerned that when that foliage comes on and, the cover comes over top of her home, that, that hotspot may not serve her too well then. But hopefully in the meantime, maybe some of our service providers can get out there. One additional thing is that we did finally hear back from Comcast in regards to their Internet Essentials program. One of the difficulties with that in the past had been if families had ever defaulted on a Comcast bill, they were not eligible for that service. And, I'm sorry to say, but a lot of our folks who had contacted me when I was trying to work on options with them, they had defaulted on payments in the past and weren't able to do that. But Comcast is now coming up with a voucher program that would allow us, if we receive more grant money and things, to purchase the voucher on behalf of the family. And then, we would give them a voucher that has a code on it that they could then get that Comcast Internet Essentials program, for 1 year. So we're still continuing to work and exploring all options. Had a conversation with Point Broadband, who provides internet service to our school division that we're contracted with, trying to still work on avenues to, get more homes served through every outlet we can find. And, we'll continue to seek those.
Dr. Kaiser, I have a question. If we ever get back to a normal routine and with all the children in-house learning, will that service still be provided to those homes?
We are going to provide the service as long as the funding streams that have been put in place for this stay. Right now, the vision grant that we received, we'll be able to continue service. This Starlink, for instance, the service began February the 1st. Technically, that's when our contract began. So that service is for 12 months. So we'll be continuing it through that for sure, at that point, then the homes will have the opportunity to purchase those. The mobile hotspots, as long as we can continue funding those, we can keep them at the same rate that we have now. We can't add additional hotspots, but we can continue, the 250 hotspots that we have at the $15 per month that they're charging us for those. And, we'll continue to seek funding avenues to provide more because, the reality is now that we've went down this road due to the pandemic, it's going to be hard to come back from it, especially as now, snow days and things become virtual learning days. We have to have students connected. And the reality for all of us is one of the reasons that we hadn't been one-to-one with our computers to students prior to the pandemic was simply for this reason of connectivity. Well, now that we've, every student has a device and is able to continue their learning outside the walls of the classroom, there's really kind of no going back at that point, even if it's just supplemental to the instruction that they receive during the day.
Speaking of snow days, does snow interfere with on those satellites build up on them?
Let me go back to a
Does
picture
it look,
because
angle, it look
I
like
think
some
this
of
is
them.
this is one of the things that's pretty cool. But when we install this, and you can see right now, it's not pointed straight up to the sky, but it's close.
It's close, yeah.
When you actually hook that satellite receiver up, the first thing it does is points itself straight to the sky. So it rotates and moves and can follow the satellite if it needs to move a little bit.
Okay.
But it's also got a heating element built into it.
Oh, okay.
And so the cable that runs from that's power over Ethernet, and inside that it does have a heating element. So snow doesn't stick to it like it would
Good.
traditional
Yeah,
satellite
this
systems. So
most of them.
yeah, that's helped tremendously. We've had no complaints during our snow days, so they must be working well.
What area of the county are you concentrating on? Or are you got it all over the county?
Well, now for future, when we're outside of the beta, we're shooting to serve the most needed homes throughout the whole county. During this beta project, we were limited, as I had mentioned once before, from Coburn to pretty much to Norton, just before you go down to the Overlook, and from Birchfield to High Knob. So kind of that area, if that paints a little bit of a picture. And the reality is the way that it's all worked out, they have our county divided into certain areas. And so that was the one that had the most coverage in our county. Our other areas that we could serve, also the areas that are included with those encompass other counties. So as we move forward with this project, we're going to get to include more of those as they include more of the counties. So we hope to be able to serve, the most needy homes in the county rather than having to focus on areas.
Other questions from the board? Dr. Geiser, thank you so much. It's a lot of information, and it's good information.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Let's see. 10.3, Special Education Annual Plan. We have handouts for that were in our packets. Dr. Mullins?
Mr. Chair, members of the board, at this time, I believe that Ms. Kern will share information with you pertaining to our special education annual plan. This is, of course, the plan we present to you each year, and we will be asking you to approve this plan under action. So I'll turn it over to Ms. Kern.
Okay, as he said, you do have a handout for this, and you have had an opportunity to look through it. And if you had questions, to be able to contact Jerry Adams or anyone else in her department if you did have questions about it. This plan is pretty much the same as what we have had before. It is a flow-through plan, meaning that the money comes from the federal government, comes to the state, and then the state gives us our share, or what they deem as our share of it. It does not cover everything that special education needs for the year. In fact, it's only a small portion of what special education needs. The biggest portion of what special education needs does come from our local government. And this is the small portion that we do get from the federal government through the state, and then down to our local. We do this every year, and it has to be approved. It has to be approved first by our advisory committee, which was done on February the 15th this year. And then it has to be approved then by our school board. And that's what we're going to be asking you today. It covers everything from some materials and some aides and some teachers. It does cover some money that is set aside for private services to private schools. It does set aside money that has to be done for certain services, but in no category at all does it ever cover 100% of any category. So are there any other questions that I can help with? We are going to be voting on this in the action items.
No questions? You say February 15th, it was approved by the
It's when
advisory
the
council.
advisory board did discuss this. Jerry went over it with us, and we did discuss it and approved it.
No questions? Thank you, Ms. Kern.
You're welcome.
Let's see. Dr. Mullins, the local choice anthem rates.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, we're very pleased to announce that our TLC rates actually saw a slight drop this year. And we're excited because the impact will be twofold for us in that our employees will see no increase in our health care coverage, and we'll be able to use the savings to assist with our employee salary increases. Of course, as the board's aware, any salary increases that we receive from the state only cover our SOQ positions. And we, along with all school divisions in the state, certainly have additional people that are not covered under the SOQs, and which we feel like are very minimal. And so this will allow us to provide all of our employees, not just SOQ positions, with an increase. And so, you know, some years we try to give a little raise, our insurance rates goes up, and at the end of the day, no one sees anything positive. And so by being able to provide our employees with a raise plus keep their insurance rate at the same, then hopefully that will be something that people actually feel in their pocketbooks. So we are excited about that, and of course you have the rates in your packets, and we'll be asking that you approve those rates later on tonight. But exciting news for sure.
Very good news. Any questions from the board? Hearing none, let's continue to 10.5. And this will address something that I get questions about all the time. Almost the whole world wants to know what the VHSL updates are.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, all of you are aware, and you hear from constituents, you hear from moms and dads and grandparents, and I'm sure, when are we going to see our numbers increase so we can get out and support our children, our grandchildren, our neighbors, and our friends? And as you're well aware, right now we're limited to 25 individuals in indoor venues, or 250 outdoor, or 30%, whichever is the lesser of those two. And spectators must wear a mask and cover their mouth and nose, and 10 feet of social distance must be maintained by everyone that's not family members. And what we've started to see is, you know, school divisions look for ways to creatively work around this executive order. And, you know, what we've shared with the director of the high school league, with Dr. Lane at the VDOE, with Dr. Shelton, that we have an executive order, and this board and our principals, our central office staff, our coaching staffs, have tried to, I guess, share with our students that we are individuals who like to try to follow the law, follow the rules, and follow policies. And we've tried to do that, and I think we have to the greatest extent that we can. But when our parents and students and coaches and principals and the general public sees other divisions finding these creative ways to do things, you know, the question is, why are we not moving down that path? I'm sure all of you've seen in the news that one division has moved their games to another state and had increased crowd sizes. One division decided to host three different events, three separate events at the same venue: a band festival, a cheer exhibition, and a football exhibition. Look at those as three different events and have a much increased crowd volume at that one venue. And of course, I want our students, our teams, and our parents and families and fans to have the same opportunities anyone else has in the state. And so I called Dr. Shelton, who's our acting health director, and I said, Dr. Shelton, we're trying to do what we feel is the right thing, but we see others taking different approaches, and my question to you is, are there any penalties for seeking these other ways of doing things? And of course, you know, those that have moved out of state, there's really nothing that can be done. It's being held in a different state, and so that's, you know, there's not really a lot that can be brought into question. And the second thing, I asked her, I said, well, we have one division that's remaining within our state, but have taken a creative view of how that you can do that. And she said, in her opinion, that division is not in compliance, and that the health director in that district has sent that plan to the VDH and their legal team. And she felt like that the response would be that that's not in compliance, and they would be issued an order of intent not to follow the executive order. And at that point, that division can do one of two things. They can cease and desist, and everything that'll be it. Or they can continue to move forward, and at that point, the VDH would ask for a court injunction, and perhaps, well, there'd be sanctions, anything from closing down the season to perhaps some fines. Now, that is in Richmond awaiting a ruling, and if they decide that that's a fine way to go about things, then certainly that's something that I think this board could at least consider. But if they get the response that she feels they will receive, then they will be asked to discontinue that approach. I will tell you that in a document that the governor put forward maybe 5-6 weeks ago, and I'm sure most of you have seen that. In that document, he said on April 1, if metrics are favorable, then at that point in time, there would be strong consideration given to having 100 people indoors and 500 people outdoors. Of course, one of the problems with that is that we will be football. I think the regional playoffs begin perhaps April 7th. So, you know, their season is at least coming to the end of their season. You know, volleyball, golf, cross country, I think their regional dates are April the 12th. That's when you can begin that regional competition. I think competition cheer, they start April the 5th with their regional competitions. And so for those sports, those individuals and those families, you know, April 1 doesn't help that much. And then on May 1st, in that same document, if metrics continue to be favorable, the indoor limit would move to 250, and outdoors would be 1,000. Of course, we have some well-attended track meets and tennis matches and softball and soccer and baseball, but it's almost, if they've got the two reversed, you know, this May 1st guidelines would have helped us now, because we normally don't see 1,000 people at you know, some of those spring events. And so, you know, we had a press conference today. We were sort of hopeful that we would at least see some movement, maybe even something like cheer that wouldn't help us a lot, but it would be some help. And there was no mention of that made. I think the governor's comment was maybe sometime last week, his daughter was a cheerleader and he did not view her as a spectator. That still did not get any movement from his office or from the VDH. The one thing I will mention is that proms and graduations, is sort of an addendum to the VHSL information, are considered gatherings in the executive order. And if, you know, restrictions are somewhat lifted on April 1 and then again on May 1, we would still be asked to adhere to the following totals. Indoors, since it's considered since they're considered gatherings, we would still be limited to a 25-person indoor limit, a 100-person outdoor limit. And then May would move to a 100 indoor limit and a 250 outdoor limit. I will share with you that our Region 7 Superintendent's Group has a prom graduation task force that includes students who have just been wonderful with their work with this task force. And they brought an invaluable point of view to our discussions that allow us to try to see the world through their point of view. They have made the following things clear. They want a prom. They want a traditional graduation with classmates, family, and friends. They want those graduations to occur on their campuses or where they've traditionally been held. They would like graduation scheduled near the end of our school year as opposed to June, July, August, or what have you. They are in the process of completing a video that they're going to share with the governor's office, the VDH, CDC, and we're going to try to get as many media outlets to run it as possible. That's being edited now, and as soon as that becomes available, I'll share it with you. But that will go to anyone that will listen to their stories about why these events are important to them and why being able to include those that, especially graduations, that are near and dear to them and have been supporters of them, we're hopeful that it will have an impact. In a meeting today with Dr. Lane, he had as one of his guests, Dr. Filano from the VDH, and she didn't have anything to add about cheer or spectator at sporting events, but she did say that one of the priority items below vaccinations and continued testing was graduation, and that her office, along with the governor's office, had been tasked with trying to make that happen for our seniors this year. And so that's just sort of where we are. If we have not heard from Dr. Shelton regarding the one approach to having events by Thursday, we plan to have a conference call with her. And if there's going to be no ruling made during the season, or if it's going to be postponed 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever that looks like, then obviously someone feels like that's a possibility or an approach that could be used and still be in compliance with the executive order. And certainly if this board wants to have a conversation about looking at a similar approach, we can certainly have that conversation. But again, the one thing I shared with Dr. Shelton is for school boards, principals, superintendents that want to share with their students a desire to follow the rules, it puts us in a difficult situation when others are not being asked to follow the rules. I know you hear about it all day. I receive multiple calls. I know our coaching staffs and our principals receive calls. And so again, and that's really the one big point I wanted to make with her, we want to comply But we also want to afford our students and our schools the same opportunities that others are afforded if there's no penalties. And so, that's sort of where we are right now, and I know you get tons of questions, and I do as well. But I do think it's important for us, as I've shared with some of our staff, you know, when we put out a school handbook, we ask our students to follow the rules and not only follow those that they feel good about. But at the same time, if there's no penalties for not following the rules, then why have a rule? And so, and I know I'm sounding a little frustrated, but it is frustrating. But we're continuing to work to find ways to include more people at our events. And if that's what others are allowed to do, then I think we need to be afforded those same opportunities. But I will try to answer any questions that you have. But that again is sort of where we are now.
Questions? Not much else to say except just wait and see. That's all we can do, I guess. Let's go to 10.6, Region 7 Virtual Academy. Dr. Mullins.
Mr. Chair and members of the board, I know all of you and certainly our staff, one of the things we realized pretty early on in the pandemic was that the delivery of instruction would be difficult this year. And we were all virtual for a while, then we had some virtual, some at home. We've just been through, and our teachers have been incredible. Our parents have been incredible, but it's been challenging on a lot of different levels. We know that providing traditional in-person learning and virtual learning is just not something that our teachers can sustain forever. It has been a burden, and it has been at times almost more than they could bear. You know, I've listened to some of their personal stories, and I know you have as well. It has been challenging. But we do know, and I think as Dr. Kaiser pointed out, that as we go forward, I think that now that we've opened this virtual instruction box, I think we're going to have it with us for the foreseeable future in some form. You know, it's our hope and our desire for all of our students to come back next year, and a situation, and I feel like that we will have the opportunity to welcome all back who want to come next school year. But legislation in General Assembly that I feel sure will be signed by the governor is that all students will be given the option of virtual instruction next fall. So the challenge for us is, first of all, to determine, you know, what that number looks like for us. And, you know, we certainly could do a survey now, but I think the numbers that may choose virtual option in March will be very different than maybe those that would choose it in May. And so we're in the process of putting together a plan for what do we do to offer a sound virtual instruction and take that burden off of our teachers. You know, we think those are two must. And so when the Region 7 Virtual Academy first began being talked about, and some of you watched the very first Zoom meeting that we had talking about that platform, I think all of us that were on there had some concerns about what it looked like at that time, because we weren't really sure if our teachers were going to be involved. You know, was it taking that burden off of them? Did it offer all the services that we felt like it needed to? And I think all of us were just a little bit uncomfortable, and so we just backed away. But I will tell you, over the last couple of months, as it became known out there in the general public that Region 7 was working on a virtual academy, some of these online providers got really interested in being part of that because they saw it as an opportunity for them to bring more students under their umbrellas, while at the same time offering us the opportunity to take care of those virtual learning needs. And one by one, these organizations come to the members of our academy and said, look, we can provide this, and we will cut our rates and then another one came on board, and another one requested. And so now we have three different entities that want to provide instruction in our academy. And our staff and some of our principals have listened to presentations about what these various groups offer. And matter of fact, we have a couple more meetings scheduled this week. And we feel like now that there's been this competitive bargaining going on, that we now have a wide variety of options for our students. And certainly will enable us to take the burden off of our teachers. And maybe the second consideration is that if we had our own academy, just the Wise County Public Schools, and which would put a lot of work on our teachers, if a student wanted virtual instruction but did not want to receive it through Wise County, then they could choose to go to Russell County and do the virtual instruction, to the city of Norton, to Dickinson, and then those counties would bring those students, our students, under their umbrella, and certainly receive our funding for those students. And if we're part of the academy, those students would remain our students and be part of our instructional program. And so we feel like that now that we've got the three providers in the academy, taking the work off of our teachers, our staff members, and the fact that it would allow us to keep our students home if they wanted a virtual option, that we feel much more comfortable now joining the Region 7 Academy. And next month, if things remain very positive, and we feel like they will only get better, quite honestly, then we'll bring this to the board for you to vote on being part of that academy. There is a fee associated with joining the academy. Each division has been asked to pay an initial fee of $10,000, in which you would be part of the academy forever. There would be no annual fee or anything. And because the pandemic created this need for virtual instruction, that $10,000 we would be able to take that out of our CARES dollars, so it wouldn't come out of any of our local money. And so I think being patient served us well, and I think that it allowed us to make sure that it was what we needed it to be. And so I will continue, as more information becomes available, to share that with you. And anything new that comes up, I will also try to present at our next board meeting. But we're very much more comfortable than we were initially. So I just wanted to give you that update.
Dr. Mullins, if a student is a member of the virtual academy, let's say from Union High School, will they still be considered to be a member of Union High School?
They will be.
Will they be eligible for sports? Will they be eligible for band, for cheerleading, for all the other aspects?
They would be, yes. They would be our students, and all the eligibility, clubs, teams, that would certainly be afforded to them. They would still have to perform and do the things necessary,
Exactly.
Great.
All of the other,
Passing their
they would have
subjects.
to meet all eligibility requirements.
But yes, that would be something that they would, just like an in-person student.
Thank you. That was a question that someone brought to me.
And you did say if things went well, this could appear before the board next month
Yes,
for action to
yes.
join with the Region 7 Academy.
And I will tell you that this staff has done their homework. They have asked these people to meet with us multiple times. We need this, we want this, we must have this, this is what we're looking for, and again, we've got some additional meetings with them this week, and these companies seem to be very willing to say, but this is what you need, this is what we provide. And so it's been a good process, but we've tried to be thorough with it.
Very encouraging. Any other questions? Then let's continue to 10.7, our capital improvement plan.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, each year we share with you our most pressing needs. Of course, we have a 5-year plan that we provide to our board of supervisors. And with your support, in recent years, we've managed to address some really significant needs over the past few years. This year, we're fortunate in that some of the most significant needs that remain are covered under the CARES funding. And of course, as you can imagine, some of our most pressing needs continue to be HVAC related, and addressing those needs will allow us to continue to improve the air quality in our buildings, which is one of the things during this pandemic that, you know, every agency we've met with says if you really want to help stem the flow and the spread of not only COVID, but lots of things, improve your air quality. And Mr. Lawson and engineers have completed a preliminary assessment of all of our facilities and have identified those, and of course this wasn't something that Gary already had knowledge of, because he knows where we need things and when we need them and when they need. But being able to bring in engineers to confirm some of what we already felt like we knew was a good thing. And so we moved forward with the process of bidding these services out. And again, we're real fortunate in that these will not require us to spend any of our local dollars, but all will be paid for under the CARES Act funding. Also, we have, with the assistance of Mr. Lawson and our principals, we've identified the needs that we ask our principals to share with us each year about this time. We always ask them to tell us about your priority needs in your buildings. And once we get all those lists assembled, then Gary and I sit down and we take a look at what we feel like are the most pressing needs in those buildings. And they include a number of things: furniture replacement, replacing carpet with tile, painting, bleacher replacement, locker replacement, those types of things, floor buffers, anything that they need to have school each day. Then we ask them to prioritize what their needs are and put those in our hands. And so even some of these items can be bought and acquired with CARES dollars, because some of them are pandemic related. We've had to make some changes in furniture and the way rooms are set up and the way we now offer instruction as opposed to when we had 24 kids in a room. And so some of this will also be covered, but some of it will come out of our local capital dollars, just like it does every spring. We do have, in our transportation department, we need to replace 3, I believe, of our regular buses and at least 1, possibly 2 special needs buses. And some of those purchases will also come out of CARES dollars because we've had the need to add additional runs to make sure we could get students to school and remain socially distanced on our buses. And not all. We do have a couple of buses that we didn't need to add a new run. They just need to be replaced. And so we will also leverage our local capital dollars to replace those. But normally, when we put together those big ticket capital needs, it comes out of our pockets, and we're carefully plan what we will do each year so that we know each year we have the dollars necessary. But this does help us a great deal. Then the great majority of what is needed will be paid for out of those CARES dollars. And that's just sort of an overview of our capital. And we had already been planning we already started some of these upgrades. And again, you know, purchased those services and supplies and materials out of our own local dollars. But we're grateful that we're going to be able to move forward and continue, and it not come out of our local money. So feel very good about that. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer those.
No questions? Let's continue down to the last item under discussion, 10.8, our budget update, Dr. Mullins.
Mayor, members of the board, as I've mentioned in a couple of other pieces of information I've shared with you this evening, the governor has a number of bills on his desk awaiting his signature, but we feel relatively confident that most will move forward without any revision. In particular, the recommendation for improving teacher compensation. He was the one that actually brought that to the General Assembly, and then, of course, they've acted on it during their latest session. There will be a reconvened session, I believe, that begins on April 7th. And of course, it's up to the governor to sign or veto or amend legislation at that point and send it back to the Assembly for them to take another look at. But we feel like that the 5% pay increase will be approved. You know, and we are pleased that the General Assembly recognized the tremendous above and beyond effort of our teachers this year. Not just teachers, our teachers and staff members. It's been a year unlike any other, and they have really went to the limit to try to make sure that the students' needs are met. Of course, as I mentioned earlier, this 5% are only for those SOQ positions. And, you know, we've never taken the approach since I've been in the county that we will only give a raise to SOQ positions. We've always tried to apply that across the board, and we think that's the right thing to do. Fortunately, we were able last year to provide an overall average of over 5% to our teachers, and we did that in the form of a step plus $2,300 last year. And this year, our plan is, and our hope that we can provide a step plus $2,000. That will the 2-year biennium will result, I believe, of an increase of over 13% average up and down our scale over the biennium. And of course, this increase would move our starting teacher salaries to over $40,000. And you know, if you look at the divisions in our immediate area, I think from a competitive standpoint, we would be competitive with most anybody in our region. And you know, with the work of our salary scale committee a few years ago, when we identified, we knew that we had a salary scale because of so many freezes over a period of time. We had a salary scale that was just askew. It was out of you know, we had these pockets of folks that had done relatively well, and then we had some that had just been stagnant. And because of the work of our committee and this board, we've been able to get our scale really close to where it needs to be. And by doing this, and I think that we put ourselves and position ourselves in a really good place. We also would like to, as we build a budget, we would like to address our nurses' salary scales somewhat. As you can imagine, they have been on the front line, contact tracing and contacting parents, contacting VDH and Joyce working, and it's that they have had a full year and have done a tremendous job because there's a lot of information to keep up with in days, and you know, and so they've just been wonderful, and we really want to move them up their scale. We also want to offer them the opportunity to work in our summer school program because we'll still have a need for health screens, and you know, we hope not, but there could be a situation where we have a positive that we need to make sure we make all the proper contacts, and we also want to at least offer them the opportunity to move from a 180-day contract to a 200-day contract, because there's just so many things that we ask them to do that they just need a little more time to do it, and they need to be compensated for that time. We also want to adjust our custodian, our paraprofessional, and our aide scales. That hourly rate to begin at $10.50 an hour. And we also want to move up our substitute custodian rates to $10 an hour. just slightly below someone that's actually employed by our system. It has become increasingly harder to find individuals who will do a very hard job for the rates of pay that we've been able to provide in the past, and we hope that this will help us in this area. We would also recommend that we move our substitute teacher pay rates up to $70 a day. If we're able to move the rates up for our other employees, our other hourly employees, we will really need to make this adjustment, or we'd have everyone move in that direction. And so this will allow us to keep a very good, very stable, very passionate group of people on our substitute list, and probably be able to add to that somewhat. We are, awaiting some additional legislation, money for additional counselors that would move that ratio from 1 to 325 students. We think that's going to pass. Broadband expansion, as Dr. Kaiser's already mentioned, Starlink dollars, fiber dollars. We just feel like that we've only scratched the surface, but we're making progress. And whether it's right or wrong, as you can imagine, broadband companies that run fiber are not cheering for Starlink to be successful. That's just the truth. And so there's a little bit of, but to us, it really doesn't matter as long as we can get our students and their families served. We're not fans of any one, whatever that looks like, as long as they get service, we're fans of it. And so we're not jumping on one team or the other. We just need our families served. And so we have got some additional dollars to do that with. Also, there's some dollars for additional positions, school psychologists, social workers, mental health supports. Each division, based on their ADM, would get, X number of positions. We think we will see an increase there if we're able to find these individuals to add to our staff. We think we'll see a little uptick in those numbers that we have. And of course, they've provided in some of the legislation learning loss, remediation, enhanced summer school. And one of the things, and I don't say this in a disrespectfully at all, but the Zoom conferences we have with the state superintendent, as of late, have all been conferences, and they begin something like this. As you begin to start back to school, these are things you need to do, and you need to consider this for summer school. And several of us on that call are saying, wait a minute, we've been in school over 100 days. This is not really for us. So some of what you hear about enhanced summer school, if you've not had school at all, you probably need to have a very enhanced summer school. But for us, we have some kids that certainly have experienced learning loss, and some that have specific needs that we're going to be able to meet. But for us, it's just going to be continued schooling. Because we've sort of been there and done that, and I feel like now we're in a phase where Southwest Virginia, if you look at the map they put up during our meetings, purple is people that are in school. All the purple's down here in the west. Then you have a lot of other colors throughout, and so again, we've already been there, and unfortunately, we're now been placed in a mode where you all stay right where you're at until the rest of us catch up, and then we'll all move forward together. But anyway, I don't know why I got off on that, but I guess, again, maybe some frustration. But yes, there's going to be money for us to really have a dynamic summer school program, and we've already got plans, are planning to have a really robust summer school. I think Miss Brandy got notified today that summer feeding is going to be extended to provide meals as we've done this past summer. And so I know she's excited about the possibility of feeding children. It's just that I know she and her staff are worn out. And so we are pleased that we can do that, but it's been a chore for them. And so we certainly pray for their strength. And some additional dollars for some growth assessment funding. They're now talking about in grades 3 through 8 moving from the current SOL system to gradually over a period of the next couple of years moving to let's test when they get there in the fall, let's test in the winter, let's test in the spring. And so there are going to be some dollars for training our staff in how to assess and what those are going to look like. But that's just sort of an overview of where I think that we will end up once the reconvene session is finally finished. We are excited about the possibilities and being able to help not only our people that are so deserving, but to take some care of some of our infrastructure needs as well. But I'll be glad to try to answer any questions that you might have.
Dr. Mullins, do you feel that there may be some money for our different schools to help make up for the loss that they have had by not being able to bring in athletic funds?
Yes,
Because we've had great losses
Yes.
in all of our schools.
we have. And we've already, in conversations with our principals, we've already shared with them, we know that you're experiencing losses. When you have, crowds of anywhere from 1,000 to 2,500 at a football game, the same for basketball, you can't, there's just no replacing those dollars. And they're currently already doing this. We've asked them to send us their invoices for helmet reconditioning, uniform, all of those things that normally would come out of those gates. Beth has asked them to send those to her. We're taking care of those. And then if there are additional needs, we're going to give them as much as we possibly can.
Okay.
And so far, they've been very comfortable providing us with, like I say, the invoices for all of those things that normally you would place under that. Well, we'll take our gate receipts, and a lot of our schools, they'll do fall billing. They'll get equipment reconditioned in the spring, or they'll order workout clothes maybe for the summer, and then they'll be billed in the fall after football is up, and because they know they'll have that capital, and this year they simply don't have it. So any needs that they've had, we've asked that they share those with us and let us take care of them.
Okay.
And we'll continue to do that, as long as their needs don't become a hot tub for every coach, that kind of thing. But no, in all seriousness, they have really been, it's been very positive because they feel like we're trying to help them meet those needs.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions? Let's continue on to item 11 of our agenda, action items. I polled the board before the meeting began, and no one saw a need to enter into closed session. So we'll start with employment. Is there a motion to approve the superintendent's recommendations for employment?
So moved.
Okay. And is there a second?
I second.
Okay. Is that Martha or Vicky?
Me.
Okay. Those in favor of approving the superintendent's recommendations for employment, let it be known by aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion does carry. The 11.2, the 2021-22 school calendar, which was in our packet, and that's option B, is the one the superintendent is recommending for us to adopt. So is there a motion to adopt option B, which is the superintendent's recommendation for the calendar for next year?
So moved.
Okay, Philip. And is there a second?
I'll second.
Denise. Those in favor of adopting option B for next year's calendar, let it be known by aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion does carry. Local choice renewal rates. Superintendent's recommending that we continue with TLC, and of course we'll need with no rate increase. Is there a motion to accept TLC as our insurance carrier for next year?
So moved. Vicky.
That was Vicky, okay. And is there a second? Mark, a second. Those in favor of the local choice anthem insurance for next year, let it be known by aye.
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 Those opposed, no. Motion does carry. 11.4, the special education plan, which we discussed this tonight and had a chance to read over the last few days. Is there a motion to accept the special education annual plan as presented?
So move.
And is there a second?
I second.
Those in favor of approving the special education plan as presented, let it be known by aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, no. Motion does carry. Is there any information that we need to get out to people tonight? Okay, none? Closed session's kind of moot. Let's go to any new items. No new items? Okay.
I have a question. Dr. Mullins, do we have a tentative date for possible graduations if that were to actually happen on time?
We're meeting with our principals on Friday. Of course, we've had preliminary conversations, and of course, there's so many unknowns that we've not, we have traditionally, that week prior to our last day of school, we've always, not always, but that's been that Friday, Saturday is sort of where we've landed.
I had some, excuse me for interrupting, but I had some parents to actually contact me that they weren't exactly sure when school was going to be out because they weren't aware that some of those virtual snow days actually counted as days that we were in school. So some of those parents thought we were, pushed way
go
into
right.
June. So I need for you to clarify that.
Well, and of course, as all of you are aware, each year we're required to provide a minimum of 990 hours of instruction.
Yes.
A lot of, or 180 days, 990 clock hours, and with our virtual days that we were able to use this year, if we miss no more days from this point forward, we will have over 1,200 clock hours. So
Yes.
our calendar will be the calendar that we end the year with. If we had something catastrophic, a flooding that a couple of weeks or something that we were knocked out of, then we may have to make an adjustment. But right now we have well enough above and beyond the hours needed. So we'll finish the current calendar we have as it is. And I'm going to talk with the principals on the only thing about going ahead and just setting those dates.
Yeah.
With the governor saying if metrics improve, well, we know that that's currently happening. If we see an uptick, does that mean May 1 we won't go to those enhanced numbers outdoors? And but I do want, we are, one of the things on our agenda when we meet with them Friday is what are we thinking in terms of graduation as a date? We're going to do those outdoor at our football stadiums or, and try to firm up some of those things because it's important. If additional friends and family members are able to attend, some of them need to start making some plans now if they're out of town or out of state. And so at our next board meeting, I hope to share with you, this is what the principals would like to do.
Okay.
This is what we're tentatively looking at doing. But putting anything down and
Exactly.
letting the ink dry
Can
right
can
now.
we say in general, we're looking right now somewhere near the end of May?
That would be when we would traditionally graduate, and if we see those metrics, then we,
And that way, it's not anything specific, but it is somewhere near the end of May.
right. And we're hopeful that we continue to see, like I say, these metrics improve. 1,000 would not be, we've had graduations where the convocation center's been relatively full.
Okay, thank you.
And so they would not, it wouldn't allow us to, if it's 1,000 for an outdoor event, that would give us much greater latitude than we have right now with outdoor sports.
Exactly.
But it still wouldn't give us unlimited numbers. But 1,000 would certainly be better than where we currently are for sure.
Okay, thank you.
just following up on that, have you checked with the college on the prior center?
The college, I know when we checked about football, that they weren't having outside parties come out and play at their stadium. And I haven't checked with them as far as letting us come indoors. They had greater numbers for their basketball games than we were allowed. But again, my thoughts are as an outside group. But I will check on that, Mr. Short. We hadn't talked about, I think probably for us, if we're able to move to the college, would we be able to use the numbers they've allowed, or we would have to adhere to what the governor shared with us? And my view would be, we would have to adhere to whatever numbers the governor, because it's in the state of Virginia. But it still would allow us to have, let's say if the metrics improve and we can have, I think what was it, in May, you could have 250 indoors, I believe, that's what I shared with you.
Yes.
So I think our schools would probably decide to have them outdoors at their own facilities where they could have 1,000 as opposed to the indoor 250. But they've always welcomed us, but they, like I said, they wouldn't allow football games out there. And that may be the case for anything for an outside group, but I do think that that our principals would choose the outdoor option simply because they could get more folks to those events.
Thank you, sir. Okay, item 15, board comments. Let's begin over here with this is Vicky. Vicky, any comments to make?
Just congratulations to all the state athletics winners. And I think we do have some positive aspects as we approach planning for the next school year. Thank you.
Thank you. Martha?
I too would just like to congratulate Maddox Reynolds with Central High School track and field, Thomas Potter with the Union Wrestling, and the Union High School basketball boys. Job well done.
Herb?
No comments.
Moniz?
I'm just thrilled to be here today, and I too am very happy for all of these young people who have reached the level of state championship, and all those who have tried, who have gotten to that level and were able to compete at that level. That's really something in itself, is even to compete there. I'm very, very happy to know that our budget is looking as if we can reward these people in our school system who have worked themselves so hard this year. And it just really pleases me so much that we are really looking at being able to do that. I appreciate it. I have a short quote tonight from Henry David Thoreau. And talks about what we've been doing for a whole year. It says, "Things do not change, we change. All change is a miracle to contemplate, but it's a miracle which is taking place every instant." Thank you.
Dr. Rennan?
No comments tonight.
Philip?
Comment.
I'd like to wind up the meeting by, again, this is the first meeting in a long time where we've got not 100%, but a lot of positive news. And things are beginning to look up. And it benefits our teachers, our staff, but more than anything, it benefits our kids. And I'm real thrilled tonight to hear all this good information coming up. I'd like to congratulate Union with their success with the basketball, their wrestling champ, and their track champ. That's quite an accomplishment. And I'd like to again, thank Brandy for all of her work she's done on those meals, and that award she got tonight is a long time in coming, girl, and you did a great job, and we appreciate you. And we appreciate all of our central office staff. And the special education plan was put together well as usual, and you did a great job on that. Anything else? Hearing none, and having completed our agenda, this meeting is adjourned. See you in April.